As someone who has attended church since before I could walk, in a family comprised entirely of devout Christians, and having read the Bible cover to cover, it has become increasingly clear to me that these holy scriptures were meant to be taken symbolically, not literally or historically. Things like talking snakes and bushes, virgins giving birth, eating the body of Christ, staffs turning into serpents, and many other biblical miracles are all actually ancient spiritual symbolisms found in many cultures and traditions around the world, thousands of years older than the Bible, referring to psychological phenomena, not historical events.
Okay, we look at the Old Testament. We look at the stories of Abraham and all of the crazy things in the Old Testament. Oceans opened up, fish swallow people, lady cut somebody's hair, and all this crazy stuff goes on. The Apostle Paul speaks concerning that on page 953. The rest of you look at Galatians chapter 4, page 953. Galatians chapter 4. What does the Apostle Paul say about this old... I mean, come on. You had stories of a whale swallowing a guy. The whale pukes and an evangelist comes out. And I mean, you've read, and hey, that's okay. And then you get up and sing a song, Amazing Grace, and all of this stuff. You have stories about two naked people running around in the Garden of Eden, they call it, and they don't know they don't have any clothes on until a talking snake comes along and says, hey, what's that there? I don't think you got your shorts on. And it's, hey, what? God says, who told you you don't have any shorts on? And they say, the snake said it. And what did you say? That's my religion. I'm a Christian. I'll buy that. Sounds good to me. You have a story about people that are running away from the Ramses, the Pharaoh of Egypt, and they get to the Red Sea, and what happens? Very convenient. It opens up, and they go right across, and we never question it. In fact, you'll find people going over there to find out where it was in the Red Sea. You got a guy that takes two of every kind of animal in the world on a boat with him. Who's cleaning this mess up? Can you imagine this thing? Two of every kind of animal. And did you ever question any of this stuff? No. What did you do? You went to church. I want to hear more of this. Hallelujah. Praise God. Here's my offering. I'll buy that. This makes sense to me. Never questioned it. And what does the Apostle Paul, who was one of the writers of the New Testament, say in Galatians chapter 4 on page 953? He's talking about the Abraham stories. And verse 22, Galatians 4, for it is written Abraham had two sons, blah, blah, blah. Verse 24, what does it say? Which things are an allegory. Wow! Right away, when you see the word, this is an allegory, means you can run away with this thing and begin to explore the symbolic meanings, because allegory means these things didn't happen. They are deep, mystical, symbolic stories that have a content concerning the human mind in the deep realms of consciousness. There it is.
Of course, snakes and bushes cannot talk. Of course, virgins cannot give birth. Christ isn't a cannibal. Wooden staffs cannot turn into living serpents. Water cannot magically turn into wine. Breads and fish cannot magically manifest from the ether. And humans cannot survive for days inside whales' bellies.
What's really sad about it is there is a truth that is kept from people. And people think, well, our religion is the true religion, not realizing that our religion is stolen and copied word from numerous old religious myths and cults. I mean, it's true. People can get mad at you for that, say, hey, you shouldn't say that. But it's true. But you're kind of damned almost as some kind of a traitor or a cultist or a Satanist if you dare say such a thing. But Christianity is a religious concept that comes from the ideas of many ancient beliefs. Buddhists, Jews, Hindus, Chaldeans, Egyptians, Persians. They took something from everybody. The nativity, like we talked about, the birth of Jesus Christ is copied word for word from the birth of Hare Krishna. Devaki was a virgin. She found that she was pregnant. An angel came and told her she was going to give birth to Hare Krishna, who was God. The wicked king, whose name was Kansa, heard that Hare Krishna was going to try to overthrow his kingdom. So he turns around and kills all the children 2 years and younger. She gives birth in a cave. The stars were very auspicious. And the cowherd girls, the shepherds of the time, were the first ones to come and see him. I mean, it's copied. So the birth of Jesus is copied word for word from that. And it has to be that way because that was thousands of years before Jesus. So why did they copy it? And then, of course, he's born on December the 25th, which is the day that the sun has been born since the beginning of time because of the winter solstice. It's the end of the winter solstice, and the sun is born on December the 25th.
And remember, the word God is simply the word good with an O missing, and the word devil is simply the word evil with a D in front of it. So, we weren't very clever in coming up with cute names, but it's obviously just the conflict between good and evil is all it is, God and the devil. So, but if you look at Psalm 78, verse 2, it says, quoting, quote, unquote, God, I will open my mouth in a parable. I will utter dark sayings of old, which we have heard and known, and our fathers have told us. Now get this. This is the book of Psalms, which is probably dates back about 4,000 years. And it said, I will open my mouth and I will utter dark sayings of old. Say. And it says here in verse, we will not hide them from their children, showing to the generation to come the praises of the Lord. So here you come here, and I say, what I'm going to show you are the hidden meanings and what these things mean. What do the allegories mean? What do the parables mean? What do the proverbs and so forth? And so we're fulfilling that. But here in the Bible, in the book itself, it quotes God as saying, I will open my mouth in a parable. I will utter dark sayings of old. Can any of you in this room or can any of you out on television think of a dark saying? Well, you speak in dark sayings constantly. Let's go over a few. Let's go shoot the bull. That's a dark saying. It has nothing to do with killing an animal. He spilled the beans. That's a dark saying. There's no beans on the floor. Or he's 3 sheets to the wind, or that's right on the nose, or he's green with envy, or we were talking at lunch, and somebody was saying I was on the phone and this guy was bending my ear for a half hour. Well, is he really, bending his ear, or is it just, it's a dark saying. And none of these are difficult for you. You understand them all, just like that. You'd have no problem if I said, come on, let's go shoot the bull. I dare say none of you would run to get a gun or a bow and arrow, but you say, okay, because you're going to have a conversation. What does it say? I will utter dark sayings of old. Let's take a look at what the value of understanding dark sayings are. Go to page 541 and look at Proverbs chapter 1, page 541. And in Proverbs chapter 1, it talks about, look at verse 2, to know wisdom and instruction, to perceive the words of understanding. So now we're going to show you what you have to know in order to perceive words of understanding. Look at verse 6, to understand a proverb and the interpretation, the words of the wise and their dark sayings. Once again. So you've got to understand something, that when you're looking here and it talks about going into the desert, it doesn't mean going into the desert, it means going into confusion. It means going into confusion. What's being said is everywhere I look, it looks the same. Remember Jesus or Jehoshua is tempted in the desert and the devil speaks to him. Everybody gets that. When you go into the desert, it means everything looks the same. You don't know which way to turn. You don't know where to go. You don't know what you are. You don't know what to do. And this thing in your head starts speaking to you. Well, then you're in the desert being tempted by the devil, if you want to speak in symbolic terms.
Now Jesus says in Mark 4:11, unto you is given to know the mystery of the kingdom, but unto them that are without, all these things are done in parables. See? And these parables are the stuff that Christians take literally. And it says in Matthew 13:34 that without a parable, Jesus never spoke. Both the Egyptians and the Greeks declared that it was a sacrilege to reveal the doctrines of their mysteries. And what I'm telling you, the mystery of the kingdom, which has not previously, maybe even to this very moment when you're sitting watching this on television been revealed to you, is that the kingdom of God is in the right hemisphere of your brain. And you can activate it and open the door by doing what Jesus said in John 21:6 and casting your net to the right side. How can people take this stuff literally in the Bible when you see it was duplicated years before in the ancient mysteries of the Hindus and the Buddhists and the Egyptians? How can you sit there and say it's your religion? It's their religion. You copied it.
2 Corinthians 3:6 clearly says the scriptures should not be read literally. Matthew 13:34 says Jesus never spoke unless it was in parables. He said people who took the word literally were like those who looked but could not see. Modern fundamentalist Christians who read the Bible literally with their overactive left brains are missing the whole point. The reason Jesus casts nets to the right side, sits on the right side of God, and builds the door to the temple on the right side is because he is leading us out of our lower left brains and into our holistic, symbolic, higher brain on the right.
You see, when you take this stuff literally and you think that Jesus was the only resurrected Savior, he wasn't. Mary was the only virgin to give birth to the Son of God. She wasn't. But when you take it literally, then you're destroying the real truth that this is the same old story that was given to every culture on the face of the earth. The Apostle Paul said in 2 Corinthians 3:6, you be able ministers of the New Testament, not of the letter, but of the Spirit. For the letter kills, and it does. It kills our relationships with other cultures. We should be all talking. Somebody calls their God Krishna or whatever. What's that? What's a big deal? It's the same God. Because the Bible says there's only one God, so it has to be the same God. They just call him by a different name. Why get ticked off about that? Jesus said in John 16:12, I have yet many things to say unto you, but you cannot bear them. Now, Christians can't bear any of this stuff. They can't hear any of this stuff. They can't hear about the astrology. They get freaked out. Oh, don't talk to me about that. And yet, in Genesis 1, the very first page, it says, God says, let the stars be for signs. Well, if the stars are for signs, shouldn't you figure out what they mean? Psalm 147 says God named all the stars. Why did he call them Sagittarius and Aquarius and Aquila and Coma? Why did he call them those things? Nobody knows. Do you know the whole Bible was written in the stars before it was ever put on paper? And you can read the Bible by looking at the stars? No, you say, well, that's ridiculous. No, it's not. It's true. I say, well, I don't believe, that the stars influence people. Then why does it say in Job 38:32, can you bind the sweet influence of the Pleiades? Can you loose the bands of Orion? They're stars. And it says in the Bible, it says they influence people. I'm telling you, it's a shame that we have been made afraid of nature and the cosmos by this religion that goes no further than a book.
Go to page 944. Here's the Apostle Paul again in a book called 2 Corinthians. And in 2 Corinthians, the Apostle Paul in chapter 3, verse 6, saying, who has made us ministers of the New Testament. 2 Corinthians chapter 3, verse 6, page 944. Who has made us ministers of the New Testament, not of the letter, but of the Spirit, for the letter kills, but the Spirit gives life. The letter, can you think, and mostly in this particular room are ladies, can you think of situations where the letter kills? Absolutely. I can show you situations in the Bible where it says if the young girl has a pelvic examination and she doesn't pass, you get rocks, you hit her in the head and kill her. Take it literally. That's what it says in the Bible. I can show you where Moses said, hey, kill all the little kids, kill all the women who aren't virgins, and keep the other ones for yourselves. That's in the Bible. And here we have expressions that are symbolic in nature, but when they're taken literally, then it allows one group to hold another group in bondage or actually do physical harm. One last scripture and we're done. Jehoshua the Christ, whose name is called Jesus, whose name was not Jesus. There was never anybody by the name of Jesus that lived in Palestine. The only people that named Jesus live in Puerto Rico.
All religions, as I stated, are based on the life, deeds, and events of people who never historically existed. Adam. Now that writes out the three major religions right there. That's right. Because Adam never existed. Noah never existed. Abraham never existed. And I don't have, anybody in here got a Bible with them? Nobody brought a Bible, huh? You got a Bible, brother? Good. Good. What version you got there, man? King James. Go on, brother. King James. That's really the way to say it. Sweet thing, right? Brother, do me a favor. I need you to help me since you have your Bible. If you will, turn to Galatians. The 4th chapter of Galatians. Now, see, usually when I talk this verse, I have a Bible and I read it. And usually when I read this, those who are Christians say, I want to see that in my Bible. Okay, so he has his Bible, Galatians the 4th chapter, verse 22. What does it say, please? Nice and loud.
For it is written that...
Stop right there. Stop. Slow down. Slow down. Notice what it says. It says, it is written. It didn't say it's true.
That's right.
It says, for it is written.
That's what it said.
What else, brother?
For it is written that Abraham had 2 sons.
Abraham had 2 sons. Now, I don't know how many of y'all know this story out of the biblical text. Abraham had a son. His oldest son, according to the biblical text, was Ishmael. All right? Who was the son of the Egyptian woman Hagar. Right? And then he had another son 14 years later whose name was Isaac. All right? Who was the son of his so-called wife Sarah. Okay? Now, one of the things I'm still trying to figure this one out. And that is, how is it Abraham, who we've been taught was a Hebrew, had sex with an Egyptian and gave birth to an Arab? I'm still trying to put that one together. Because all the Arabs will tell you that they are the children of Ishmael.
That's what they said.
Okay? Go ahead, brother, read on.
The one by bondmaid.
The one by bondmaid, which was Hagar the Egyptian. Go ahead.
The other by a free woman.
The other by a free woman, which was Sarah, right? Go ahead.
But he who was of the bondwoman was born after the flesh.
That was Ishmael. He was born out of sin, in other words, because God didn't promise this one. God promised the other one, according to the Jews. Go ahead.
But he of the free woman was by promise.
But he of the free woman, meaning Sarah and Isaac, was a promise. Now, this brother's getting ready to read a phrase that I'm sure was never brought to his attention before. And it probably wasn't brought to a lot of y'all's attention. What is the first few words in the 24th verse, brother?
Which things are an allegory.
Thank you. In case y'all didn't hear it. It said, which things are an allegory. In case y'all don't know what an allegory is, an allegory means it's not a true story. It's not a real event. It's a story that was made up. It was an illustration that was created to make a point. In other words, according to their own Bible, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Ishmael, Hagar, Sarah, it's all an allegory. It never happened historically. Now, if Abraham never historically lived, then that means Isaac wasn't real. If Isaac wasn't real, Jacob wasn't real.
That's right.
And if Jacob wasn't real, let's run up the line.
That's right. That's right.
The so-called tribes of Israel wasn't real.
That's right.
The line from the tribe of Judah wasn't real.
Right.
It's all allegory. Now, I didn't put that in that book. You don't like it? Take it out. Tear your page off. I don't care. They ain't gonna change it. It's an allegory. Every culture got their stories.
And we talked about this morning with the movement of the people of Ishmael, which separated from Abraham, which is it's all metaphysical allegory. I would give you, and I don't, tell you have to believe anything. I'm not, because I can't prove anything. But we're just talking and saying, can we reach a level of saying, gee, this makes sense for a change? If so, then we're on to something. But I would give you as a premise the fact that the people in the Bible never existed, okay? Never existed. And there's no proof for the existence of any of them, and it's far more important to understand that they represent parts of you and aspects of your own mind. And that makes it not only very personal, but it opens to you possibilities that are tremendously long range when you think of, hey, what is being said, by what authority are these being said, and can I connect them to aspects of science? To me, if God is not provable, then forget about it. I mean, there is absolutely no sense in bothering with this thing, because we're coddled into saying we've got to have faith. And I don't like that. Faith to me is simply something you have to have when you're not sure. And that doesn't make any sense to me. If there is such a thing as God, then it should be demonstrable and provable.
I got an email. I sent out an email blast just a couple of days ago. I was up to about 3 o'clock in the morning writing this thing. A young lady asked me to prove to her, she's been listening to Black Liberation Radio lately, she asked me to prove to her that Jesus never existed, or that Moses never existed. See? And I sent this long email back trying to explain to her it is impossible to prove the non-existence of a thing. Think for me for a moment. If something never existed, how can I prove that it doesn't exist? So I told her, I said, let me reverse the challenge. Prove to me that they did exist. And I will pay all of your living expenses for the rest of your life. You see? That's what we should be. And I asked her, I said, you're asking me to prove to you that there was no Adam, there was no Eve, there was no Noah, you're asking me to prove this to you. Did you ask your original teachers who taught you this to prove to you then that they existed? No. The answer is no. I didn't do it. I was raised with a belief system. I was raised in a belief system. And I accepted it, I digested it, without ever verifying the existence of anybody I had been taught about. Can I get a witness? If you would be honest with me, you'd have to say, well, he is telling the truth now.
Telling the truth.
He's telling the truth, because that is right. We didn't stop to ask for proof. And we grew up believing it until somewhere in our psycho paradigm, it has become our reality. It has become our reality. That doesn't mean it's real, though. It simply means it's our reality. Am I making sense so far?
Yes.
Cool. So what's deep is when you honestly believe that a person raised somebody from the dead, or when you honestly believe that somebody took 2 fish, 5 loaves of bread, and fed over 5,000 people. Got me? When you honestly believe that somebody broke God's laws of nature and walked on water. Now trust me, I am a psychotherapist by profession, okay? And what we call the manual we use for determining psycho illnesses. Diagnostic manual, thank you, brother. Okay, in there's a code that means if you believe something that is not in the context of fact and reality, you have a mental disorder. That's right. For example, if you believe that Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer had a very shiny nose, and if you ever saw it, you wouldn't even say it glowed. If you believe that, as an adult, something's wrong. You follow me? Because that's not with fact, real, and reality. It's not historical. Okay? Religion has done that to us. It has us believing stuff that's got us messed up as a people. Now y'all see why I have security. Now I know that's funny. Captain will bear witness to what I'm saying. Brother's been with me for a long time. Preachers are the ones who have threatened me. Y'all hear what I'm saying? Pastors are the ones who have said, we're going to stop you by any means necessary. And the only thing I've asked them to do is invalidate what I've said. I ain't selling drugs, man. I'm not a drug dealer.
But they are.
You're a drug dealer. Right? They're selling a drug called religion.
Right.
See? I'm not messing with nobody's child. like some of them are. You see, I'm just trying to tell the truth. So why do you, National Baptist Convention, want to shut me down?
Romans 2:29 says, "He is a Jew who is one inwardly, and circumcision is that of the heart, in the spirit, and not in the letter." It doesn't get any clearer than that. The Bible is saying circumcision is of the heart, not the penis. To focus on the spirit, the symbolic, not in the letter, the literal. And that Jews are anyone who is inwardly focused, those who seek God within, meditators, prayers, not a race or religion. God doesn't choose a race of people over others. God's chosen people are simply devoted meditators.
What we're here to talk about and we discuss is the hidden meanings in the Bible. A lot of people say, well, what are you talking about, hidden meanings? I have one guy tell me not so long ago, boy, that's off the wall. I said, that's it. That's what I'm talking about. The hidden meanings. That's off the wall. Meaning you're speaking in symbolic language. You know, he shot his mouth off. Let's go shoot the bull. Boy, that's right on the nose. He's a pain in the neck. All of these various things. He's 3 sheets to the wind. He kicked the bucket. That's symbolic language. That's the language the Bible speaks in. And the Bible confirms that it does by saying in Psalm 78 that God speaks in parables. It says Jesus never taught but in a parable. Jesus was occult. That's what the word occult means. It means religious truths which are hidden behind words. That's what occult means. And it says Jesus never taught but in a parable. And Jesus says, unto you is given to know the secrets of the kingdom. Those he refers to as people who are in meditation. But to those who are without, outside of the inner consciousness, all things are parable.
Unto you is given to know the mystery of the kingdom of God, but unto them that are without. Now look at that. Unto them that are without. Let's underline that word. Unto them that are without, all these things are done in parables. It's all symbolic. When you are without. What does that mean when you are without? When you're not within. And the only time you are within is when you are meditating. So to those who are not meditating, all of these things are parables. And so that's why they figure they got it all figured out. And yet they're looking at symbolisms and they're taking the symbolisms literally. Now, the interesting point here is look what he says. Unto you is given to know the mystery of the kingdom of God. But unto them that are without, all of these things are done in parables. Do you know what it says here? That God directly, intentionally deceives people. Look what it says. That seeing they may see and not perceive. And hearing they may hear and not understand, lest any time they should be converted and their sins should be forgiven. So, in other words, these are given symbolically with the intent of deceiving people until they get within. As long as you're going to stay without and try to figure this out from the left side or from the intellect, you're not going to understand it. Now, what does he say? Unto you is given to know the mystery of the kingdom of God. Did you see that? That's what you have. If you go within and you go into meditation, you'll know the mystery of the kingdom of God. Now, this is why I say that the entire book is a book of psychology. You want to learn the mystery of the kingdom of God. Good. Where's the kingdom of God? Go to page, and I forget which page this is on because I didn't write. It's on page 853. Look at Luke chapter 17, page 853. The point is, what is promised by Jehoshua the Christ is that if you go into meditation, you understand the mystery of the kingdom of God. Look at page 853, Luke chapter 17, and go to verse 21. Neither shall they say it's here or there, for behold, the kingdom of God is within you. So what is the promise? Meditation will reveal to you the mystery of yourself.
Let me show you a little Jesus teaching, and let's see, we take a look at it. Matthew 12:46. He's in the temple speaking. And it says, while he yet talked to the people, behold, his mother and his brothers stood without, desiring to speak with him. This is deep biblical mysticism, and that's the way the Bible was written. You should never look at the Bible as a storybook or as a history book. It's a Bible. It means it's a holy book. That means everything that it says has a symbolic spiritual meaning. It doesn't mean that the activity did not occur. But if it's in the Bible, you have to ask yourself, what does that mean to me now? Otherwise, it's a waste of time. This isn't just another novel, you know, the further adventures of Jesus Christ and his 12 merry men we're talking about here. This is life. This is a Bible. Every word's spiritual. Jesus said in John 6:63, my words are spirit. That means they're not for your mind. They're for your spirit. See, one of the things you have to understand, in this Bible, Jesus does not appear as Jesus of Nazareth. In John 5:30, Jesus Christ said, of my own self I can do nothing. Can you imagine that? That's what Jesus said, that he was helpless. He couldn't do anything. He was no more powerful than you are. That's what he said. But you see, we don't believe him. We're born-again Christians. We believe the Lord. We don't believe that he couldn't do anything by himself. He said he couldn't. In fact, in John 5:31, he said, if I bear witness of myself, my witness is not true. We don't believe that. In other words, Jesus is saying, if I tell you I'm something special, don't believe me. I'm a liar. I'm nothing special. That's what Jesus said. We say, you're wrong, you're wrong. The church said this, the church said that. The church is full of baloney, okay? Because the church doesn't listen to Jesus Christ, because Jesus Christ was trying to come to this earth to say that the same thing that he found and had, you can find and have. He said that you can do the same thing that he did, you can do better. And the only reason we haven't is because we don't believe him. So then why is he in the Bible, and what are the stories about, okay? He's in the Bible because he is a manifestation of the universal Christ. See? The universal Christ is the consciousness that dwells in the right hemisphere of everyone's mind. The only thing is everyone is dwelling in the left hemisphere in the carnal mind. Christ dwells at the right hand of power, or in the right hemisphere of the divine mind. The stories are of the inner universal Christ and the world's reaction to him. That's what it's all about. Thus, not only was Jesus a manifestation of the Christ, but Jesus himself said, so should you be, so should you, must be. And the point was that Jesus said in John 14:12 that the things he did, you can do better things. Well, you could not do better things than him unless you became Christ. Exactly. That is exactly it. See? That's what the Apostle Paul meant in Galatians 2:20 when he said, I am crucified with Christ, nevertheless I live, but not I, but Christ lives within me. The whole meaning of this mystically is that we die to the mind or to the human consciousness. That's the crucifixion. We die. And then we are risen up into the higher consciousness, into the right hemisphere of the brain with Christ, where we then become Christ through the Christ consciousness. You say, well, he says he can become Christ. Yes, you can. That's what Jesus said, not what he said. Jesus said that. And we that say we're Lord and born again are full of baloney if we don't believe that what he said is true. And when we start believing him, we will become Christ, because we will no longer dwell in the lower consciousness. We will dwell in the upper room in the Christ consciousness. So look at the story then, not the physical family of a man, your brother and your mother is outside, but the celestial family of the Christ within us all. See? Matthew 12:46. While he yet talked, his mother and his brother stood without, desiring to speak with him. This statement tells it all. Read it carefully again. Matthew 12:46. Christ is speaking within your consciousness. That's what this means symbolically. And those who claim to be his family, born-again Christians, and wish to talk to him are without. Do you see what it says? His mother and his brother stood without, desiring to talk to him. See, that's religion. They claim to be his family. They claim to be born-again Christians. They claim to follow Jesus. But they desire to speak with him. But what do? They stand without. They don't enter into the higher consciousness. They say it's evil. See? They don't go into the inner presence. They say it's wrong. See? And then, as if to emphasize this, Jesus in Matthew 12:47 says, behold my mother and my brethren. They stand without. Somebody said, behold thy mother and thy brethren. They stand without, desiring to speak to you. And the point of this message is, in mysticism, the hidden meaning of it is that no one can speak with the Christ unless they go within. You can't, no matter if you claim to be part of his family, you cannot be in the family of God, you cannot be in the family of Christ and speak with God, speak with Christ if you're without. Jesus said the kingdom is within you. That's the whole play on words here. That's what this means. The hidden meaning of it is that you, if you are going to speak with Christ, must enter within. Jesus said in Luke 11:52, you take away the key because you don't enter within yourself. The kingdom of God is within you. And notice that these who claim to be his family were standing without. See, Jesus is within here. The Christ is within here. In Mark 4:11, Jesus says, unto you, that means unto you who dwell within, who enter into profound meditation, who practice the single eye that Jesus talked about, who practice taking no thought that Jesus talked about, who practice praying with the closet door closed. That's all Eastern meditation that Jesus talked about. He said in Mark 4:11, unto you who are within, it is given to know the mystery of the kingdom, but unto them that are without, all things are done in parables. Now compare that word without in Mark 4:11 with the fact that in Matthew 12:46, his mother and his brothers stood without, desiring to speak to him. Okay? And then in Matthew 12:47, somebody said, behold, your mother and brother stand without, desiring to speak with thee. See, but Jesus has told you that them that are without, all things are parables, and they can't speak with him. You can never get a prayer through, never ever get a prayer through if you're praying without, because you're praying out of the carnal mind. See? And that carnal mind is going to tell you to ask for what you want. A lot of people in hurricanes say, oh my God, I'm so glad God intervened and this storm missed us. But it killed somebody else because they don't care. I mean, they do really care about the person, but the primary thing is survival. It's self, it's ego, see, which is normal, perfectly normal. But Jesus said that's not the way you can come to him. You have to come to him above the realm of thought where there is none of that. Where there is no thought, there is no ego. Where there is no thought, there is no devil. Where there is no thought, there's no stress. Did you ever try? Let me give an example. Jesus says when you pray, take no thought. That's profound meditation above the mind. Did you ever try to get a stressful situation into yourself when you have no thought? When you're not thinking of anything, how can there be stress? When you're not thinking of anything, how can there be a devil? The devil is just thought out of your carnal mind. See?
So what are the results of the ways that we have followed? And Jesus says wisdom is known by her children. Remember something. The essence of God and the essence of yourself are mysterious. We'll call it a mystery. Mysterious. A mystery. The hidden writers will lead you to experience the mystery. Remember Jesus, unto you is given to know the mystery. You are a mystery. 90% of you is God. 10% of you is yourself. The unfortunate part is that the 90% is shut off. And how you say, how do I flip the switch? How do I get the switch to come on so that the God part of me starts to activate? The divine part, the creative, the right side starts to activate. And the point is, you have to go to the mountain. Every one of these situations in this book, the holy man went to the mountain. God went to the mountain. Krishna went to the mountain. Jesus went to the mountain. Moses went to the mountain. Everybody has to go to the mountain. The mountain is nothing but a symbolic reference to the highest part in you, which is the higher realms of consciousness, which you go to through meditation.
So if you're seeking without, and if you're not entering in meditation, you're one of those who claims to be a family of Jesus Christ, and yet Jesus won't acknowledge you. Because you're without, you've got to come within. And Jesus is about to make it very clear. You may claim to be a part of God's family. Your bumper sticker may say that you love the Lord and honk if you love Jesus. But if you're not seeking within as he instructed, you're standing without, no matter how good your intentions are. So what does he do? In Matthew 12:48, Jesus turns and he says, who is my mother? Now think about it. Who is the mother of Christ? And then he says, who is my brethren? Or who is my brother? Think about that. And Matthew 12:49, he stretches forth his hand towards his disciples, and he said, behold my mother and my brothers. For whoever shall do of the will of my Father which is in heaven, the same is my brother and my sister and my mother. See? You see what this is about now? He's separating totally from physical relationships, and he's going totally into a spiritual relationship. No one can claim they are a part of the body of Christ unless they are disciples. And no one can claim they are a disciple unless they discipline themselves. And the only way you can discipline yourself is when you obey Christ and enter into the higher consciousness above the realm of thought. I mean, I get so freaked out about these people with New Age and all of this stuff. There wouldn't be any need for a Shirley MacLaine if the church was teaching what Jesus was telling them to teach, but they don't. That's why you need a Shirley MacLaine. Because she's telling people, go within and find peace. That's what the church is supposed to be teaching, but all they're telling you is wait till you die and you'll go somewhere. Baloney. Only those who do the will of the Father in heaven are members of Christ's family. Well, how do we know the Father's will? John 14:10. Jesus says, the words that I speak unto you, I speak not of myself, but the Father that dwells in me. He does the work. Father dwells in him? How can a father dwell in him? How can a father dwell in you? In John 8:28, I do nothing of myself, but as my Father has taught me, I speak these things. Now, what are the things that he spoke, and what are the things the Father taught him? The kingdom of God is within you, Luke 17:21. He says that's what the Father taught him. Seek first the kingdom of God. In other words, seek first that which is within you. That's what the Father taught him, Matthew 6:33. Luke 11:52, you take away the key of knowledge because you don't enter within yourself. That's what he said the Father taught him. That's what he's supposed to be teaching you. Matthew 6:22, the great Eastern guru saying that Christianity doesn't know what to do with. If your eye be single, your body will fill with light. You ever see the dot in the middle of a Hindu's forehead? That's the single eye, the third eye, the seat of the soul. Jesus said, yes, you got to use that. You've got to enter into that kingdom. You've got to raise yourself above the violent carnal mind if you're going to find the kingdom of heaven. That's what God taught him. Jesus also said in John 21:6, cast your net over to the right side if you want to catch fish. Don't you understand what that means? That means cast your energies over to the right hemisphere of the brain. And you do that by shutting down the left hemisphere or taking no thought or going into profound meditation in the upper room in the higher consciousness. These are the instructions of the Father given through the mouth of the Son, the Christ. And it still is that way. Because the Father is in you, John 14:23. The Christ is in you.
Encoded within the Bible, but is also encoded within the Vedas, is encoded even in the Quran, encoded in the Dharma. All these religions who were so separated, and this singular language of mysticism links them all and links them all to one singular truth, that singular truth being that we ourselves are antennas of prayer, and we have to work out how to not only speak to God, but to hear God as well.
So Jesus then, in talking about these things, he says, who is my mother? Well, who is his mother? What, in the context of the mysticism and the hidden meanings of this passage, who is Christ's mother? She is the virgin consciousness. She is the womb which is free of the stain of human thought. In the ancient religions, God was always the mother. See, the goddesses of the ancient times, and God became a man, and when the machos came across the desert, you know, the children of Israel with all their swords and all of that stuff, fighting the Hittites and the Perizzites, it all became a macho thing, and women became relegated to secondary positions in their society because they weren't fighters, and it still extends to times now when they don't allow women to minister in a church. What nonsense that is. What nonsense that is. Paul himself said the flesh and blood has no part in the kingdom of God. This is spiritual things we're talking of. But so the Christ mother is that part of you where there is no human thought, where there is a virgin consciousness. When you take no thought, your consciousness is virgin, and there can the seed be placed which can give you divine life. There was where the Christ can be born within you. See, that's what the Christmas story is about. Shepherds watching over their sheep, mystically and in the hidden meanings of the Bible, means you watching over the thoughts of your mind at night in deep meditation. An angel appear means a messenger of God. That which comes from the higher consciousness then leads you to the place where the Christ is in the virgin consciousness, leads you to the place of the stable. That's all within you that happens. It's beautiful. See, that part of you where there was no human thought is the virgin consciousness. That's why Jesus must be born of a virgin, because God in you can only be born out of no thought. There can be no stain of human thought. That's what Peter meant in 1 Peter 1:23, being born again, not of corruptible seed, but of incorruptible, by the word of God, which lives and abides forever. The word of God is not the Bible. The Word of God is the dwelling of the power to speak truth within you in the higher consciousness. See, the mother, the virgin consciousness, is the I-S of the word Israel. Israel is not a Jewish word. Israel is an Egyptian word. There are three parts to it. There is I-S, which is the goddess Isis, which is the virgin spirit. There is R-A, which is the Father God, which is the mind. And then there is E-L, which is the God within you. See, Isis, in the ancient times of mythology, conceived by lying on the dead body of the god Osiris. And she became pregnant through a virgin conception spiritually and gave birth to the child Horus, H-O-R-U-S. It was an immaculate conception. And the picture in Europe of Mary with the baby Jesus on her lap in a great cathedral was copied from the ancient Egyptian picture of Isis with the child Horus on her lap. It's the same thing because it always has been the same. It can't change. Human beings have always been the same. God doesn't choose any group of people to be his select people. Israel means when your spirit Isis, I-S, and your mind Ra, the mind, is together within you, E-L, you are Israel. Has nothing to do with a country.
This is what the exodus of slaves out of Lower Egypt is all about. A manual for spiritual enlightenment, not a literal slave revolt. There is no history of 600,000 slaves leaving Egypt for Israel, because it never happened, and Israel never used to be an actual place. It was just 3 names of gods, Isis, Ra, and Elohim, shortened to Is, Ra, El. The real promised land Moses spoke of exists between your ears. Acts 7:48 says, "The Most High dwelleth not in temples made with hands." The only temples not built by human hands are the 2 temples behind your eyes, in front of your ears.
The silence by which you build a temple is the silence of meditation. In esoteric Christian language, stone always means natural, and brick means man-made. And the house, when it was in building, was built of stone. It was built in a natural way in perfect silence. It's an esoteric code. It's depicting the silence of meditation to build the temple. But which temple are you building? The door for the middle chamber was in the right side of the house. The middle chamber is the goal that you're aiming towards. The middle chamber is the activation of the pineal pituitary. And where is the door for there? It's at the right side. It's only when you bring your energy from the right side, the promised land is in the east, the right hand of God, that you can begin to activate the pineal within you and the full use of your temple that God has given you.
There is a place in the center of your brain called the pineal gland of the brain. In fact, we run into that next Sunday morning with Jacob and his travels. But the pineal gland of the brain, also known as pineal gland of the brain, it's spelled P-I-N-E-A-L, also pronounced by many as P-E-N-I-E-L, pineal gland of the brain. And the ancients knew it. What you would see was in the power of mythology of people called the Cyclops. They would have an eye in the center of their forehead, and it would be extremely powerful and so forth and so on. But that single eye would be the seat of all power of the soul. And if you look in a dictionary today and look up pineal, P-I-N-E-A-L, or pineal, it says the single eye, the third eye, the seat of the soul. And what's interesting is here then Jesus says to you specifically what you should do. Here's what you should do. Page 781, and it says in Matthew chapter 6 what you must do in order to understand and in order to fulfill this thing of entering within yourself. Look at verse 22. And it says in Matthew chapter 6, verse 22, "The light of the body is the eye. If therefore thine eye be single, your body will fill with light." Okay? Body will fill with light. We have an article in the back on the table back there from the New York Times, which talks about the pineal gland secreting a hormone called melatonin, M-E-L-A-T-O-N-I-N, which is a skin lightener, which is another point for those of you who are, scientifically motivated, because here is Jesus saying if you practice the single eye, your body will fill with light, and the scientists would say if you stimulate the pineal gland, your body will fill with melatonin. So he says, and so then how do you do that? How do you stimulate the pineal gland of the brain? Well, you just turn the page to Matthew 6:25, and it tells you in Matthew 6:25 to Matthew 6:33, take no thought. It says it 5 times. Separate from the thoughts of the mind. Isn't that great? You don't have to join any religion. You don't have to become a part of anything. You don't have to go anywhere. You don't have to spend any money. All you have to do is discipline yourself to separate from the thoughts of the mind. Not an easy challenge, but nonetheless something that is well within your ability to do. Very easy to do, doesn't involve you with any group or organization, including anybody here.
As said in 1 Corinthians 3:16, Know ye not that ye are the temple of God, and that the Spirit of God dwelleth in you? In Matthew 6:22, Jesus says, The lamp of the body is the eye. If therefore thine eye be single, thy whole body shall be full of light. Genesis 32:30 states that Jacob called the place Peniel, saying, It is because I saw God face to face. In other words, Jesus and Jacob are referring to the pineal gland, the third eye, meditation point, which lies at the geometric center of our brains. When you slow down your brain waves through meditation, sensory deprivation, entheogens, or other methods, your usually overactive left brain eases off and allows access to the higher, holistic right brain, and through to the pineal gland, which the Bible calls the dwelling place of God, and Descartes called the seat of the soul.
Genesis chapter 32. Look here at, here's the statement where Jacob is having a wrestling match with himself, and he overcomes his own self. He sees God face to face. Now look at what he calls the name of the place where he has seen God face to face. Genesis chapter 32, look at verse 30. And Jacob called the name of the place Peniel, for I have seen God face to face. I mean, you don't need to be a nuclear scientist. You don't need to be a Rhodes Scholar. It is obvious. Say, whether you look in the New Testament and they call it the single eye, whether you look in Jacob calls it the pineal gland, whether you understand the relationship between melatonin and so forth and so on, you say there is something that I'm being told here. I was told this by Krishna. I was told this by Buddha. I'm being told this by Jesus or Jehoshua. And so there is something here, and it comes from the people of the East. It comes from the people of the Orient, and it finds its way into this book that you call a Bible.
All of us need to take time to build upon that temple, which is ultimately the resting place of that doorway to the divine and the guidance of Spirit that many of us are constantly seeking. Spirit knows much better than we do the best direction for us to go. God knows the best direction for you, whereas our carnal minds might not always. And the temple you need to build is the temple with your pineal at the top. Now, I want to relay something about a temple that is referred to in Christianity, Solomon's temple. And a lot of people have heard about this, and they heard of Solomon's temple even if you haven't read Christianity. But before I get into that, I just want to quickly show you why it's so important. Why it's so important that all of us build our very own Solomon's temple. And we must. We absolutely must. Because it's part of the rules of communing with God on this physical plane. You must somehow be able to commune with God to the best of your ability. And to do that, you have an anatomy of prayer that you have to make use of.
We're going to do something interesting tonight, which I think you'll find, and that's Kundalini. That's a strange word for it to be a Hindu word. We were saying this afternoon, it sounds like something you'd go to get in an Italian restaurant. You know, I'll have Kundalini with clam sauce, you know, something like that. But it's not it's Kundalini. It's a very strange word, but it is a most ancient thing that transcends all religions, and you know, it goes back to the very earliest concepts of the human body. And basically, if you were to say what it boils down to, is the way that you take control of yourself. That's Kundalini. Rather than the lower self controlling you, this is the way that you control yourself. I mean, there are just certain ways and certain things that you do in order to make things happen. If you're going to install air conditioning, you have to follow principles in order to make the thing work. If you're going to install electricity, you have to follow that. In the same way, the ancients, the wisdom that came down from God, left us instructions on what to do in order to control your body and your mind rather than having the effect be the opposite. Right? And this describes actually 7 chakras, which they call chakras, distributed from the base to the crown of the head, from the spine to the crown of the head.
Now, if you look over to the east, look toward Jain and Hindu faith. The Kriya Yogis, for example, is another good one. It's very commonplace to speak of the energy of Kundalini. And the energy is described, and I don't like to use the term serpent because so many Christians are scared of that term. But you have to remember that it was a golden serpent wrapped around the staff of Moses that healed people. And that same symbology, it's a positive symbology, that same symbology exists over into the ancient Vedas teachings of Hindu faith, Jain faith, and so on. Now, if you look at the basic principle of raising your energy, raising your life force through your body up to the higher aspects, the higher energy centers of your body, and then having the best ability to make use of your anatomy of prayer, your spiritual anatomy, to work alongside your physical anatomy. Now, the whole concept goes that you raise this energy, the Kundalini as it's called, from the base of your spine, and it wraps around the spine and up to the top. And now when it gets up to the higher chakras, it passes through the 7 energy centers of your body, or the 7 chakras, which is simply the word wheel in Sanskrit for the swirling energy centers. When you get to the highest level, you open the right hemisphere of your brain, the spiritual side of your consciousness, of yourself. The spiritual side is triggered by the colostrum within inside your brain, and the light of the spiritual journey and of God comes over to you from the right hemisphere, and you begin to embrace the spiritual aspects of your journey. Now, this is all represented in the Hindu faith very well, the Kundalini climbs, and then you throw open the right hemisphere, and of course they wear as a sign of the third eye the dot on the forehead. But where is this in Christianity? Solomon's temple is something that you should know. Now, I'm going to read this word for word, because I think for those of you who have not read the Bible, it's important that you hear it word for word so you understand. Now, keep in mind what I've just said. Exactly what I've just said about Kundalini awakening and how it's depicted and the benefits of it bringing things from the right hemisphere of the brain after raising through the spinal column. Now, it should be said as well that, of course, how do you raise that Kundalini? You raise it in the silence of meditation. This is how it is done. Now, King Solomon's temple. I won't read the whole passage because it's quite long, but I'll read what's important. And the house, when it was in building, was built of stone, made ready before it was brought thither, so that there was neither hammer nor axe nor any tool of iron heard in the house while it was in building. The temple that was being built in silence. The silence by which you build a temple is the silence of meditation. The door for the middle chamber was in the right side of the house, and they went up with winding stairs into the middle chamber, and out of the middle and into the third. The winding stairs are no different to the golden serpent placed upon, or the bronze serpent placed upon the staff of Moses. The winding stairs is that interlocking energy that climbs up your spinal column. It is Jacob's ladder. That is ultimately what it is, and that is how you reach the middle chamber, is by raising that energy through your spinal column.
But to activate this in your body, and everybody can activate this in their body, but to activate it is to release realizations of spiritual consciousness and bliss. That's what it does. Spiritual consciousness and bliss. The only possible way that you can activate spiritual consciousness is Kundalini. There is no other way it can be done. It is impossible to do it any other way. And that's why it's so important that you become familiar with the term. Otherwise, you're into religion and you're dwelling in consciousness of the lower mind with all of its distractions. You can't work that way, and we'll show you that soon. But the 7 centers that are located from the base of the spine to the crown are known as chakras. C-H-A-K-R-A-S. R-A-S. And that word means wheels. Okay. 7 chakras, wheels, they're nerve centers. But I want you to understand something about that, okay? They're psychological. And that's very, very, very important for you to know. Okay? They're psychological, which means if your doctor was to look and x-ray your spine or open your back and inspect your spine from the base to the crown, he wouldn't find any of these chakras. And what is being said here is that in each place, in each area where a chakra, quote-unquote, is located, there is something to be overcome, whether it be in the base, the sexual area, the heart area, the throat area, the solar plexus up into the head and up into the crown. There has to be an overcoming, but these are not physical things that you can find or any doctor could find attached to your body. So understand that. But they are definitely there, and they definitely have their placement, but they're on the spiritual realm of things and the psychological realm of things, but still, you'll never find fulfillment in your life until these things are overcome, until each of these centers which are closed off are open. You'll never find life. You'll never find spirituality. You'll spend your life praying and reading Bibles and reading Bibles and reading Bibles, but you will not experience that which is the essence of life.
The next part, which is very important, and within the oracle he made 2 cherubims of olive tree, each 10 cubits high, and 5 cubits was the one wing of the cherub, and 5 cubits the other wing of the cherub. From the uttermost part of one wing and to the uttermost part of the other were 10 cubits. And the other cherub was 10 cubits. Both cherubs were of one measure and one size. The height of one cherub was 10 cubits, and so was it that the other cherub. And he set the cherubims within the inner house, and they stretched forth the wings of the cherubims, so that the wings of one touched the one on the wall, and the wing of the other cherub touched the other wall. And their wings touched one another in the midst of the house. The cherubim are the cerebrum of your brain, and indeed the wings of the cerebrum of your brain do touch and meet in the middle. And that is what it is depicting. It is depicting the inner workings of yourself. You go up the winding staircase. The entrance is to the right to allow you to get into the middle chamber, into your pineal, where you have the cherubim sitting over the top. And of course, this is the seat of the Christ seed, is the colostrum, which is just beneath there. And it is only in building your own Solomon's temple that you are able to access the best possible union with God. And we do that by taking no thought for our lives, or we do that by meditating, or by building the temple in silence, which is what was asked.
You have an energy raising itself from the base of the spine inside of you. The spine, your back. Your spine is on your back. Okay. Well, you know, sometimes, you just want to be careful. Okay, you have 7 chakras. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, that's the belief. We don't go into details about the others of the 9th. I'll tell you about that later. 7 chakras that rise up your spine inside of you, obviously, to generate energy to the right hemisphere of the brain and cause you to start thinking with cells which are located at the right hemisphere of the brain. And those are the 7 chakras of Kundalini. Now, it's a very strange thing, isn't it, to think of something like this or to talk about something like this, especially in Christian circles. I happened to watch a program on television at my office in which a Catholic priest was putting this down. And he was saying what the belief is that there's an energy that rises up 7 chakras to the spine and then throws energy to the right hemisphere, and this is something you got to stay away from. This is New Age thought, it's Hindu, and it's something you don't want to get involved in. And I wrote him a letter and I said, Father, you know, nice program and God bless you and everything, but you want to be a little careful as a Christian as to what you say about these 7 chakras. And I showed him something, and I'm going to show it to you right now. Go to page 229 in the New Testament in the book of Revelation, all right? Page 229 in the New Testament in the book of Revelation. And let's look at something together which is very, very interesting. Now, this is a Bible. It says Bible on the front of your book. King James Version, which kind of gives it some Western authority, some credibility in your life, I would assume. You know, it's used by Christians, Jews, and others who are of our ilk, if you would. Now, I just told you about this very strange kundalini of the 7 chakras going up the spine and opening the right hemisphere of the brain. Page 229 in that New Testament of yours, Revelation chapter 5, okay? Let's take a look at what it says. Listen, and let's read it closely and carefully with me. And I saw in the right hand of him that sat on the throne, immediately we're being led to the right hemisphere of the brain of the higher consciousness, okay? Now watch what this is. This is the book of life that all of Christianity is based on, my friends. And I saw in the right hand of him that sat on the throne a book written within and on the backside sealed with 7 seals. It's in your Bible. Therefore, we must be very careful if we get this New Age fear creeping into the point that we start screaming against everything simply because it's Hindu. Definitely it's Hindu, but definitely it's in the Bible. And that, my friends, the description of Kundalini in the Bible is termed the book of life. And all over that every church you've ever been to, they said you want to make sure your name is written in the Lamb's book of life. The Lamb's book of life, because the top chakra, the crown chakra, coincides with that which is Aries, the ram or the lamb, which takes away the cold of the winter and takes away the sins and so forth and so on. Okay? So, I'm not here telling you about a strange Hindu belief. I'm telling you about something that is in Revelation chapter 5, verse 1 of your Judeo-Christian Bible. A book held in the right hand of him who sits on the throne, written within you on the backside, indicating the spine, and sealed with 7 seals, which are the 7 chakras. You don't have to be a Rhodes Scholar, I think, to determine that's what they're talking about. That's what's in the Bible.
And the entering of the oracle, he made doors of olive tree. And I've said this before, that the hypoglossal, even today in science, has the olive of the hypoglossal. And as that holy secretion which comes from the colostrum makes its journey through you, and in meditation you bring it back up through the winding staircase of the Temple of Solomon, and you get up to activating your right hemisphere, and you can go into the middle chamber, which is your pineal pituitary gland. Then the secretion passes through the doorway of your hypoglossal, your 12th cranial nerve, and through the olive. And at that point, that secretion will move over into the hypothalamus, where it rests gently for 2.5 days until it can be resurrected. Now, this is about the preservation on the anatomical side of the sacred secretion. But in the basic daily meditation side of things, whether the secretion's being preserved or not at that time of the month when the moon is in the sign in which you were born is irrelevant, because you can still channel that electromagnetic energy through the nervous system of your spine. You can still raise that energy, you can still force open the right hemisphere, the entrance to the right, and you can go into the middle chamber of Solomon's temple, and there you will see God face to face in the place that Jacob called pineal gland of your brain. And that is the temple that you will need to build, and we all need to build, and many of us do build. You don't have to sit in the lotus to meditate. You may be the sort of person who sits quietly praying, and you're still doing it, because it's when you take no thought in that silence that you raise up that energy within yourself. When you're thinking, you alter the electricity of your body, the electromagnetism of your body, and you stop that from happening. But when you go into the depth of silence, you begin to awaken it. And remember, the temple's made of stone, it's built in silence, and that is the Temple of Solomon. It is the temple that is you. And the temple is, as we've seen in the Bible, you are the living temple, you are the temple of God. And just as Jesus said, I will bring down this temple in 3 days, as I've shown recently, you can rebuild and regenerate immune system, etc., of your body by fasting for 3 days, by bringing down the temple in 3 days and raising it up again. And it's the same old story of the same anatomy of prayer that belongs in every religion, in every faith, that you raise that energy through your energy centers, through the 7 chakras, and there at the right hand of him was a book sealed up the back with 7 seals. As you raise that energy through your 7 chakras and you bring over the energy from the right hemisphere, go through the right entrance of Solomon's temple, you go into the middle chamber. And that is ultimately what it's all about.
These 7 seals or 7 chakras can only be opened by the serpent. Can only be opened by the serpent. Now, how do I know that? Well, of course, that's the ancient belief, but take a look again, Revelation 5, where you are about this. Look at Revelation 2, 5:2. And I saw a strong angel proclaiming, "Who is worthy to open the book and loose the seals thereof?" With me? Who can do this? Can you? But look what it says in Revelation 5:3. And no man in heaven, nor in the earth, nor under the earth, was able to open the book, neither to look therein. Now what you just said, the word man in mysticism means mind. The human mind never, ever, 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 under any circumstances, can take part in entering and opening up the seals, the 7 seals, which leads up to the crown. It's impossible. It cannot be done. It can only be done by the coiled serpent of Kundalini. Can't be done any other. And the Bible has just said no man anywhere is able to do that. So, no man is found worthy. Look at Revelation 5:4, and I wept because no man was found worthy, blah, blah, blah. Couldn't even look at it. You know why? Because you cannot enter the right hemisphere of your brain. Here you have a head. How many of you had a head? Look at, everybody has a head, right? In your head is a brain. 10% of the brain you use. That's the 10% of tithing. That's what God wants you to give. That's what tithing means. Give that 10%. Has nothing to do with money. The other 90% you don't touch. 90% of your brain you don't touch. Would that seem reasonable to you? This is telling you, hey, that 90% is available to you if you follow the instructions of the ancients, including Jesus Christ, who said, practice the single eye, which is Kundalini. Go to the upper room, which is Kundalini. Okay. So who is able to open the seal? Revelation 5:5. And one of the elders said, weep not, behold, the Lion of the tribe of Judah is able to open the seal. Okay? Very, very important. Watch with me. If you go to Numbers chapter 2, verse 2 in the Bible, you'll find that the tribes of Israel were set up under the, what you would call the 4 points of the compass. North, south, east, and west. Okay? Now, here we have the tribe of Dan in the north, the emotions, the tribe of Reuben in the south, the physical, the tribe of Ephraim in the west, the intellect, and the tribe of Judah in the east, as it says in the King James, at the point of the rising sun. All right? And the domicile of the sun in the zodiac is Leo the lion. Leo the lion of the tribe of Judah, the power, the energy of the sun, the power of the spirit at the right hemisphere of the brain, sitting at the east, is all that is available, but it is available to you to open the 7 seals. You, in other words, have to, if you're going to undertake this work, enter into meditation. You cannot rush this. Many people have tried. Timothy Leary tried to go up via all of this stuff. What do they take? LSD and all this stuff, and you can freak yourself out. Yes, you can. That Jesus Christ addressed that. He says people try to take heaven by force. Okay, you can't, except you can burn your mind, you can burn your brain. You can't fool with this stuff. The only possible way is sitting as a seed, waiting until nature feels you are ready and starts its movement upward to open the right side. Has to be done according to nature. You know, you cannot plant seeds and then pull up the grass tomorrow. It comes up when it comes up. And everything is done in God's law, in you as well as outside. So the Lion of the tribe of Judah, the sun, See? And that's like, okay, that's fine out there. But look within yourself. Where does the lion's domicile within you? It's at the east. It's at the right side. Because when you look north, east is always on the right side. And there, the power of the right side will energize the activity of Kundalini within you. And that's the only possible place. And then it says also, the Lion of the tribe of Judah hath prepared to open the book and to loose the seals, the root of David. What that means is David is the king. You must have David within you as well. You must be disciplined to take the land. You must be disciplined to overlook the land with your army of human spirits saying, I am not going to allow the marauders from the lower Canaanite places to come crashing in. I am going to keep the land. I am going to keep the right side protected, and I am going to keep all of that which is the lower out. That's what David did. And that's what you need. That's what you have to do. Okay. So within you, the spirit of the right side will cause the seals to open. The Kundalini is a rising power, as I said, which comes up the spine, and which we read about in the book of Revelation a moment ago, okay? And as this energy begins to rise up each seal, it causes the seal to open, and it causes you to overcome that which is a problem in your life because of something that may be in either the lower chakra or the heart chakra or the sexual prostate area, the throat area, whatever it is, all of them have to be overcome. And Kundalini means, this is exactly what it means, the coiled one. Okay? The coiled one. And it is an energy like a serpent. That's why you see in India, you know, the guy gets the flute and he plays the flute and then the serpent comes up, because the ancients said when the flute is on the lips of God, the serpent will rise. That's related to this. Actually, in reality, the serpent doesn't hear, the snake doesn't hear the music of the flute. He sees the flute going back and forth, and that's why he comes up. But they use that as a symbol. Okay. The word is Sanskrit, Kundalini, which is original Hindu. It's the coiled serpent who sleeps in the lowest of the body's 7 centers. Now, Buddha says she lies coiled 3.5 times, okay? So let's look at that. I can take the stuff off again. She lies coiled 3.5 times. Now, Buddha says she lies coiled 3.5 times in the 9th. Because Shakyamuni Buddha said, yes, you go through the 7 centers, but then you get to the 8th, which is the harbinger of your memories. And in fact, number 8 in mysticism means rupture. That's the place where all of a sudden, you know, when you feel good, and then the memories come back, the dreams come back, the things come back to haunt you. And he says, when you get to the 8th, where all the bitter memories come from that drag you down, all of the bitterness that's been put into you by either family or religion or church or school or government, then he says, drill deep down into the 9th, because in the 9th, she lies coiled. And when you drill with your meditation into the 9th, she awakens and she rises to devour all of the hurts and all of the fears. It's all symbolisms. It's all way of uncovering and bringing to life the electrical energy in your body to set you free.
These secrets of meditation were well known to many ancient civilizations the world over, including Indian yogis and sadhus, who integrated meditation, yoga, and spiritual symbology into their holy scriptures as well. Even the Atlantean mythos, one of the oldest known religious stories, encodes this ancient spiritual knowledge of Kundalini Yoga. For instance, in the Atlantean myth, Atlas, the king of Atlantis, held up the entire world upon his shoulders. He had 7 daughters, the Hesperides, who spent their days dancing around the tree of life. Coiled around the tree and guarding its golden apples of immortality lived Ladon, the serpent. The kingdom of Atlantis was shaped as 3 concentric circles of land separated by 2 concentric circles of water, with the temple of Poseidon residing in the very center, where sacred bulls roamed around freely, and sacrificial bull's blood was poured over the exterior of the temple. The actual medical term for the top 33rd vertebrae of the spine, which holds up your skull, is called Atlas. So when it is said that Atlas holds the world upon his shoulders, it is your head and mind which he holds up, and your skull, when viewed from above, perfectly resembles Atlantis, or a bull's eye. The bull's eye at the center is your third eye, which roams around freely in a chamber of cerebrospinal fluid. This is surrounded by the cerebral cortex, which itself is covered by a layer of constantly flowing and pumping sacrificial bull's blood, and enclosed by the skull cap. 3 concentric circles of solid separated by 2 concentric circles of liquid. The tree of life, with Atlas's 7 dancing daughters and a serpent coiled around, is similar to symbolism found in the Bible and many other religions throughout history the world over. In the ancient Indian yogic tradition, long predating the Bible, the tree of life was your spine, with 7 chakra, nerve energy centers, and transformational kundalini serpent energy coiled at the base. Through yoga and meditation, the kundalini serpent travels up the spine, opening and illuminating the chakras one by one. This is why Numbers 8:2 says, "Speak to Aaron, and say unto him, When thou lightest the lamps, the 7 lamps shall give light over against the candlestick." The candlestick is your spine, and the lamps your chakras. Note, chakra means wheel of light. In Exodus 7:10, Moses and Aaron went in unto Pharaoh, and they did so as the Lord had commanded. And Aaron cast down his rod before Pharaoh, and before his servants it became a serpent. Again, Aaron's rod is his spine, and the serpent is Kundalini. The Egyptian pharaohs were also well aware of this spiritual symbology, as their traditional headdress was none other than a cobra hood with a serpent coming out their third eye.
Now, inside the Bible, there is reference to the chakra system, and the problem you have is that the uneducated Christian pastors out there have completely obliterated the concept because of fear and lack of knowledge, and because of that, Christians don't get use of their energetic anatomy of prayer knowledge as they should. Doesn't matter if you're Christian or not. Doesn't matter if you're fasting and know nothing about chakras. You're still using them. Doesn't matter if today you are completely opposed to the concept of chakras. You're still using them. And that is the irony of it. It's the rejection of something that dwells within you, something that is there, matter of fact. Now, the energy centers of your body can't be seen, of course, unless you align them to the endocrine system. But nor can your emotions, nor can your love for your family, nor can your wants for the future. But we know they are there. We know that they are there, and thus I know the energy centers are there because I've worked with them inside my own body. Now, many Christians will put their hands up and say, no, this is wrong, this is evil. And that's because some time ago, some person drew a very loose conclusion between the idea of Kundalini, being the rising serpent up the spine of the human being, which is not a serpent at all, it's just the electromagnetic energy of your body, the creative force of human life, which is ultimately based down there in your sexual region, because that's where all creativity dwells from. That's how we create life, it's from there. It's using that in a positive way and sending that electromagnetic energy up your spine where it can meet the pineal gland of your brain, which is, as Jacob said, the face where you meet God face to face. As he said in Genesis 32:30, I have seen God face to face, I call that place pineal. So you raise that energy, and unfortunately, at some point, some Christian pastor somewhere has said, hang on a minute, that's a snake, so it's bad. They didn't bother to look at the story of Moses and start to work things out or to study anything other than the only literal book that they've been reading in a literal sense. If you look around, however, at the language of mysticism, you'll start to see how it works. Now, the Kundalini is positive. People hate that word. The electromagnetic energy going up is positive. The electromagnetic energy of prayer rising through your body, culminating all of that energy and not squandering it on gluttony or on sexual immorality. It rises through your body, whether you believe in it or not. It's happening to us every day. And when it gets up to here, you begin to stimulate your temple of God, which is your Solomon's temple, which is inside your brain, the cherubim, the cerebrum. And that is what they label Kundalini. The Kundabuffer is the falling. It's falling down. And that is because you are overeating, you're being gluttonous, you're drinking too much alcohol, you're being sexually immoral, you're lying, you're being angry, you're being too emotional, you're not able to allow God to speak to you because you're too busy caught up in your story of poor me. This is where you go down. That's where the Christ electromagnetic energy, the electromagnetic energy of prayer descends inside of your body. And as it descends, you can look to the story of Moses. The ascending serpent is the bronze serpent upon his staff that is healing the people before him. And the descending serpent are those snakes that are biting the people. And that is how it works. That's it. And unfortunately, because chakras are linked to Kundalini, pastors and preachers all across the world have started to say, oh, it's evil, it's the third eye, it's demonic. They just don't know. They have leaned on their own understanding. They don't know. They don't listen to Jesus. Let thy eye be single. Your whole body will fill with light. They don't care about that. They really don't care about it. And why should you let your eye be single so your body can fill with light? Because light comes in angles, and angles carry photons, and photons carry messages and information, and thus angles of light, which your body must fill with when you let your eye be single, are simply messengers of God, which are the messengers of light, which we call angels. And the angels come and they fill your body with the direction of God in which way to go.
Now, this Kundalini activity in your body is a winding activity. It's like a serpent. It's like, okay, just like that. It's like, you ever see the caduceus that your doctor wears on the lapel when he comes out? You see the duality of it like that. What else do you see like this? The basis of life, DNA. Everything flows. Everything flows in that cyclic serpentine type of pattern. It's a winding energy. Now, let's look in the Bible and let's see how this Kundalini energy is described in the construction of the temple. Now remember, it says God lives in a temple not built with human hands. And as I said to the people this morning, if you take your two fingers and raise them to the side of your head, you'll touch the only temples in the universe that are not built with human hands. The only temples in the universe that are not built with human hands are right on the side of your head. That's where God dwells. And we're going to look at the construction of the temple, and we're going to compare it with this winding energy of Kundalini. Let's go. Let's go to page 296 in the Old Testament, and look at the book of 1 Kings, okay? 1 Kings chapter 6, because it's very interesting. We're looking at the construction of the temple. Now remember, you're looking at literal words, but don't look at them literally. Relate them to yourself. How do you build the temple? You've got to come in, you've got to sit, you've got to enter into meditation, you've got to deep within yourself raise yourself above the thoughts of the mind in absolute silence of what Buddha called nirvana. Look what happens here. Let's go to 1 Kings chapter 6, verse 7. This is the temple. This is you. And the house, when it was in building, was being constructed, was built of a stone made ready before it was brought there, so that there was neither hammer nor axe nor any tool of iron heard in the house while it was building. The temple is built in silence. Is it? Are you with me? The temple must be built in silence. And remember, God lives in a temple made without human hands, which means the temple that he's talking about is the temple in your head, saying that that temple where God is going to reside must be built in silence. Look at me. That's why Jesus drove the money changers out of the temple. That's what he's talking about. Are you really going to think that this guy's going to get ticked off and go kicking over pigeons and everything? For what? For what? It was a very normal thing to have money changers in the temple and have dove sellers. They did it all the time. This was showing you a secret. That when he comes in, he drives the activity out of your mind through nirvanic meditation. Okay, so we see it's built without any sound. Now look at verse 8. The door for the middle chamber. The middle chamber is the Holy of Holies. The door for the middle chamber was in the right side of the house. Why? You should stop right there and say, why? Why does it have to be in the right side of the house? Because when the sun in your sky rises in the northern hemisphere in the spring, it sits at the eastern side or the right side, and spring comes. Spring cannot come until the universal energy parks itself in the right side. Then spring comes. In the same way, it happens inside of you. Because as it is without, which is the macrocosm, it is within, which is the microcosm. The energy must park itself at the right side, and then spring comes to your life. Okay?
That's the first hurdle for Christians looking at chakras in the Bible. They immediately switch off. They think it's wrong. But I'm telling you now that these men are just not educated, and women who say this. They don't know the anatomy of prayer. They don't know it. They don't need to know it, but they also do a great disservice to the planet by claiming that it's somehow evil. Because they lean on their own understanding. They have no idea what they are talking about. If you leave a box of matches on a table, is it evil? No. If someone picks up the box of matches and sets fire to somebody, is it evil? The box of matches was used for evil. It was never evil to begin with. And thus we see it. It's told in the Bible that some people will be Satanists. They will pray to the darker energy. Some people will pray to the light. And thus we have this other problem of persons looking toward the different secret societies of the planet and the wars they have created, and clearly the evil that they have created within them. And they hear of the third eye within those societies and they say, oh, this is an evil practice. Never mind God placed at dead center of your brain. Dead center of the temple of God is the pineal gland. It's just evil. It's not. The usage has been used in evil ways because you can commune with the dark spirit world or the good spirit world.
The story of the Exodus, Moses, the Exodus, is this. The lower part of your mind that causes you fear and guilt and all of those things that hold you in bondage is mystically and symbolically referred to as Egypt. That's the lower mind, called in the Bible the carnal mind. The ego, which is part of you, which screams at you and keeps you in line, is the Pharaoh. Okay, that's the ego. Moses is that part which comes out of the truth within you and represents that which will lead you out of the bondage of the lower mind over to the right hemisphere of the brain, where you then will be in the promised land of God's chosen people. Now, that's what this is. You know, what I'm saying to you is that the exodus of 400,000 people coming out of it did not happen. The Red Sea did not actually open.
Moses wanders in the wilderness and then he finds 7 sisters. You are wandering in the wilderness, more than likely, or you wouldn't be watching me, looking for answers, because we wander in the wilderness all day in our mind, we don't know what to do. And then all of a sudden, boom, you find union with your 7 energy centers. You find the 7 sisters and you begin to make headway. You start, now I'm making progress towards the promised land, which is the land flowing with milk and honey, or serotonin and DMT, which comes from your pituitary and your pineal, which happens when you get to the electromagnetic energy to the top of your 7 chakras. And how do I know that that is so? Well, let's look again. King Nebuchadnezzar is wandering in the wilderness, completely lost, doesn't know what to do with himself for 7 years, until boom, he finds God. Snow White wanders in the wilderness for a long, long time, doesn't know what she's doing until she finds 7 dwarfs. It's all the same story. The 7 energy centers. Find the union over the 7. In the Quran, the people of the cave, Surah 22, I think. The people of the cave, 7 of them enter within the cave. They leave the dog outside, the animal nature. The cave, they enter within meditation. 7 of them go within. They leave the dog outside. They leave the animal nature, the lower nature outside. No offense to dogs. I love dogs, so I've got an animal rescue. Noah is afloat in the flood for 7 months until he reaches the higher place of consciousness, which is represented by a mountain. You see, these pastors and preachers don't know what they're talking about because they don't see the parables of the dark sayings. And the reason most of them don't see it is they don't fast. They don't let their eye be single so their body can fill with light. And thus, because of this and this alone, they demonize the very workings of prayer. They demonize it. And this is the problem that we face. So chakras are an integral part of the Bible. Absolutely integral. Just look to all of the stories that you see. Two people are about to fight in the Bible. I'm forgetting even their names, but there's just so many. Two people are about to fight in the Bible. They walk towards each other and they bow 7 times, and then all of a sudden they love each other completely. Because there is complete conflict and turmoil. And then they find the 7, they find union, they find dominance over their lower nature, and they can enter the world of the loving embrace of God. Why 7? Well, 7 is divine intervention, and 7 is the number of the energy centers in your body. It's as simple as that.
Every time you see the number 7 in the Bible, you can know. It's just like John Wayne in the movies. As soon as you see the number 7, you know that God has intervened. You remember that Esau and Jacob were at each other's throats, and Jacob thought Esau was going to chop his head off. But you know how you're tipped off that God is going to intervene and it's going to be peace? It says in the Bible in Genesis 33 or 34. Jacob got off of his horse, walked towards Esau, and bowed 7 times. Bingo! And then Esau came and hugged him. Right then, when he bowed 7 times, you knew it was going to be fine, because that number means divine intervention. Something from God is going to happen. I mean, Jesus expected his disciples to know that, because Jesus was talking to the disciples and they didn't understand what he was doing, and Jesus said, wait a minute, fellas, let me ask you a question. When we fed the multitudes, how many scraps or how many basketfuls were left over? And Peter said 7. 7. 7. And Jesus looked at him in the Bible and says, and you still don't understand? Don't you understand that when there is a divine intervention, this which is above the normal occurs? So you have to know numerology, and the first thing you'll know about it, in the numbers, you'll know that these people that taught you the 7 years of tribulation are nuts. It doesn't mean God's sending 7 years of trouble from anybody. It means in your trouble, he will intervene and get you out of it.
The number 7 appears an incredible 735 times in the Bible, more than any other number. In Revelations alone, there are 54 sevens, including the 7 seals, 7 churches, 7 trumpets, 7 personages, 7 vials, 7 woes, 7 angels, 7 thunders, 7 plagues, 7 glories, and 7 blessings. There are the 7 deadly sins, the 7 days of creation, 7 circles around the wall of Jericho, 7 years building the Temple of Solomon. Again and again, the number 7 is given incredible significance over any other number in the Bible. Christians say the number 7 denotes spiritual perfection and divine fullness, completeness, totality. But is that all? What is the real meaning of these? What is the origin of this numerology?
The Bible was written by the ancient Eastern people, and they knew numerology. They dwelled in the numbers of the zodiac. They dwelled in all various numbers that had meanings. Let me give you a quick rundown so you get an idea what I'm talking about. Hidden meanings. The number 1 means God, the Logos. The number 2 means body and soul, you and God. The number 3 means new life, resurrection, a new beginning. Jesus was in the tomb 3 days. Jonah was in the whale 3 days. The number 4 means your fourfold nature: physical, spiritual, intellectual, emotional. Okay? The number 5 means mediation. It also means sacrifice. I'm going to show you that a little later. The number 6 means doctrines, laws, religion. Don't you remember when Jesus turned water into wine? Water can mean on the lower level emotionalism. He turned water into wine. How many jars of water did it say he turned into wine? 6. 6. In other words, he was turning the religion of the letter into that which is the movement and the divine essence of the Spirit. That's what it means, changing water into wine. Number 7 means divine intervention. Joshua walked around Jericho how many times? 7. And the walls came tumbling down. 7 means divine intervention. There are 7 nerve centers, or 7 chakras, that rise from the base of the spine to the top, which are the 7 levels which a person walks in order to find that which is the pineal or enlightenment. It's all part of the Bible. It's all part of the ancient wisdom which is covered up in numbers. That's why a lot of your religious teachers, and you see them on TV, and they make such a terrible mistake. You know what they do? They go and say, well, there's going to be 7 years of tribulation. It doesn't mean that. The number 7 means divine intervention. What that means is when tribulation comes to your life, God will intervene on your behalf. It doesn't mean that God is going to send 7 years of terror. It means that God will intervene when the struggle comes against you. That's what 7 years of tribulation means. Divine intervention is 7. Number 8 means rupture, separation. Number 9 means the human consciousness. We're going to talk about that a little bit. Number 10 means completion. And the number of perfection in Hebrew is 12, which corresponds to the most ancient zodiac. Okay?
What's it trying to tell you? What is it always trying to tell you with these numbers? And it's always trying to tell you the same thing. Go through your 7 energy centers and get to the promised land which is in the east. And when you do that, when you get to the promised land which is in the east, then you will be at the right hand of God, because you will open the right hemisphere of your brain, because you will have stimulated the pineal, and the great light will come into your life. And how do you get there? You do what Moses did. Moses was in Egypt. Egypt is the lower mind. Moses had to flee Egypt, and he did. And when he had to flee Egypt, he ended up lost in the wilderness. He'd fled his lower mind, but he still doesn't know what the hell he's doing, what's going on, what's my life. Thankfully, he finds union with the 7 sisters. He finds the 7. He finds union in his body's energies. And he begins his journey on communing more clearly with God in a place without emotion. Remember, the origin of the word sin is emotion. So when you see angry people saying this is demonic and all of this, they're dwelling in sin. They are actually physically dwelling in sin when they do it. Because the truth of the matter is that no matter who you are today on this planet, if you're a Christian, you are using your chakras, your electromagnetic energy, and its flow up and down and through your body. And the more we do things which God told us not to inside the Bible and other texts, the lower that energy is. And the lower yourself is. It's that straightforward. And if you want to be as efficient as possible, bring it up. Bring it up through the 7. Break the 7 seals that are sealed up the back of that book. Smash them open with the Christ inside yourself. And that is what the Bible truly says about chakras.
It is the same as Atlas's 7 daughters, dancing around the tree of life. It is the same reason 7 lotus blossoms appeared under Buddha's feet. After the 7th day of creation, God had a millennial rest period of 1,000 years, because the 7th crown chakra is known as the 1,000-petaled lotus. These myths long predated the Bible and were purposely encoded as symbolic keys to spiritual enlightenment. They were never meant to be read literally or historically.
The Lord says, verse 2, watch it. I want you to read it. Look at it very carefully. And the Lord said, "What is it in your hand?" And Moses said, "A rod." And the Lord said, "Throw it on the ground." And he threw it on the ground, and it became a serpent. The rod is your spine. It represents the physical aspect of your nature, the flesh, the ego. What's being said there? When you will put it down, when you will relinquish control of the lower self, it will become Kundalini. It will become a serpent. And it will prove to you that I am. If you went years ago, you saw the movie Moses or whatever it was, the Red Sea, and they showed him throwing a rod on the ground and it became a snake. Huh? That's what we have always believed. This is extremely occult. The rod stands for that which is your foundation. It stands for that which is your authority. And the foundation of your physical being, the foundation of your being totally is that rod, that which is the spine. And what is being said there is when you relinquish control of it, when you will throw it down, it will then become Kundalini. When you sit in meditation and are no longer dependent on your own flesh, on your own ego, on your own self, then she will awake. The sleeping serpent will awake, and that rod rod that has been the support and the foundation of your physical being will suddenly be the serpent which will arise and wake up and be the total foundation of your spiritual being. Now, look at Exodus 4:4. Okay? And the Lord said, put your hand and take it by the tail. And he put forth his hand and he caught it, and it became a rod in his hand. The energy of the Kundalini sleeping serpent starts from the point of the coccyx, which is the tailbone. And what's being said, you throw it down, it'll become spirit. Take it in your hand, take control of it again, it'll become that which is your physical flesh. You're not going to lose control of yourself because it becomes the serpent. You can take back that authority to yourself whenever you wish. Throw it down. Spirit, I am not dependent on myself. Take it back. It's you. Throw it down. It's God. Take it back. It's you. You can have it whenever you want it. You can let it go whenever you choose. Go to page 232 and go to Revelation chapter 11. Excuse me. Revelation chapter 11, okay? And you'll see something. And Revelation chapter 11, verse 3. And I will give power unto my two witnesses. The two witnesses of the pineal glands and the pituitary gland. Okay. The two witnesses, the pineal gland and the pituitary gland, are the same as the king's chamber and the queen's chamber, the pyramid. I will give power to my two witnesses, and they shall prophesy 1,203 score days. Do you see that? You with me? 1,203 score. 3 score means 3 times 20. That's 1,260. Do you see why it's important? They put 1,260. I will give power unto my two witnesses, and they will prophesy 1,260 days. And there you have that very important coded message of 126 adding up to 9. So that's why you have to have this 3.5 times. You have to have 3, 1080, and then 1/2 to make 1260. Now, let me show you something else. You're in Revelation 11:3. Go to Revelation 11:11. Just a few verses down. Okay? Revelation 11:11. And after 3 days and a half, the Spirit of life from God entered them, and they stood upon their feet. Once again, you see it? 3.5. You're seeing that same thing that Buddha was. Now remember, Buddha wrote 1,000 years before Jesus, and Buddha was saying she lies coiled 3.5 times. Here you're seeing 3.5 days, and a couple of verses ahead of that, you saw the 1,260, which is the progression of the addition and multiplication of that. The reason that this is done like this is to hide this from the profane. As Jesus said, they look and look and they don't see, they listen and listen and they don't understand. And what does that all mean? It means that you don't have a person who knows nothing about electricity fool with the wires in here, because he'll burn the place down. And God is not going to have people who do not understand and have not had this ego purged away to touch the power that resides in the right hemisphere of the brain. You can't get at it, no matter what you do. The only way you can get at it is meditation, and when the time is ripe, Kundalini will rise and open it for you. Now let's look at the number 9. Like I said, we were going to look at the number 9. 3.5 months, 3.5 years, 42 months, they all equate to 1,260 days. If you look through the book of Revelation, you'll see all kinds of references to 3.5, 42, 1,260. They all add up to 9. So now when you have that key, that the number 9 means human consciousness, you can solve some riddles. You can solve the identity of the beast. Who is the beast? 666. Okay? Who is 666? This is the way you have to do it if you understand Eastern mysticism that wrote that. You take 6 plus 6 equals 12 plus 6 equals 18. Now you have 1, 8, 1 plus 8 equals 9. The identity of the beast is you and me. Our lower carnal mind. It's the beast that rapes. It's the beast that makes wars. It's the beast that tortures animals.
beast that hurts people and young people. It's the beast that does all of these horrible things that you read about every day in your newspaper and see every day on your television. And we can look at the beast by going into our bathroom, turning on the light, and there's a picture of the beast right over your sink. It is your lower mind. It is that part of you that threatens you, that part of you that convinces you you're not going to make it past tomorrow, that part of you that says, well, everything's okay now, but what are you going to do if, and what are you going to say when you meet so-and-so next week, and all of this stuff that keeps you rattling and shaking and all of those things within you going nuts. That's the beast. That's hell. What about those who are saved? What about those who are going to heaven? In Revelation 14, it says 144,000. That means an endless number of saved. But look at the number, 144. 1 plus 4 equals 5 plus 4 equals what? 9. 9 means consciousness. The beast is the lower consciousness. Those who are saved are the higher consciousness, the upper room, the mountain experience, meditation. When you lift yourself up above, you come into being that 144 or consciousness in the higher realm. So 9 then means consciousness, and it shows either on the lower level, which is the devil or hell or the carnal mind, on the higher level, which is the divine mind. There's an interesting way you can see how the Bible specifically shoves this in so you know, it's a tip-off from the ancient people that this is talking about consciousness. Jesus comes down and he's talking to the fellas in the boat. I'm not exactly sure, I don't know if it's in John or where, but Jesus says to the fellas in the boat, look, if you want to catch fish, cast your net over to the right side of the boat, okay? He says, if you want to catch fish, cast your net over to the right side of the boat. What Jesus is talking about is not fish. Fish means wisdom. He's not talking about the right side of the boat. He's talking about directing your energy to the right hemisphere of the mind. You do that by turning off the left side in meditation. Now, how do we know? Now that we know that the number 9 means consciousness, how do we know that Jesus is talking about consciousness and not fish? You'll see there in that scripture when Jesus says, cast your net to the right side, you'll see how many fish they caught. They caught 153 fish. Okay? 1 plus 5 plus 3 equals 9. 9 means consciousness. Therefore, Jesus is definitely saying, if you want to be filled with God's wisdom, if you want to be filled with God's understanding, if you want to be filled with God's knowledge of this universe and your place in it, then direct your energies to the right hemisphere. And Jesus told you how to do that by taking no thought. You must meditate. You must allow your eye to be single. You focus that energy right between your eyes and your forehead, and you focus energy there, and you bring yourself above all of those thoughts which are trying to destroy you. You bring yourself up into the bliss of the heaven which is within you, and then you fill with wisdom, you fill with understanding, and you start to activate the right hemisphere of your brain which has been dormant all of your life. Look, you see the same thing in the sky. You see the same thing in nature. The sun right now, as we're sitting talking, the sun in the northern hemisphere is sitting at the right hand. It is sitting in the eastern sky. And what happens when it sits in the eastern or it sits in the right hand? It brings to life all that was dormant during the winter. It's symbolic too. Paul says the unseen things of God should be made manifest by the things that you can see. In other words, when the sun in the heavens sits at the right hand of power in the eastern sky in the northern hemisphere, summer comes. Everything which was dormant during the winter is gone. Now there are flowers, now there is color, now there is new life. This is what it means. When the Son of Man, the desires of the flesh, the solar plexus is raised to the pineal, the light is at its highest, the power sits at the right hemisphere of the brain, okay? And that then brings to life all that was been dormant in your life during the winter of your soul.
If you live a righteous life and you stay in line with what is needed to be a moral human being, to be a good person, then God will stay with you. And he says he will stay with the children of Israel. Now, I've shown this before that in Christianity it very clearly states a Jew is not a Jew which is one outwardly. And Israel depicts those thoughts that dwell within us. This is why in the story of Moses, when he raises his staff, during meditation, the staff represents holding your spine upright in meditation. If he lowers the staff, then the Israelites begin to fail. And it's because of the representation of the fact that the Israelites are the thoughts of your mind. And God will stay and nurture those thoughts with you, but only if you keep his statutes, only if you live in a righteous way and in a loving way and in a way which is conducive of having the presence of God in your life. And that is ultimately what that is saying there. It's not referring to a people of Israel. Esoterically speaking, literally speaking, yes, but esoterically speaking, it's referring to your inner workings. God will stay present with you and guide your thoughts so long as you adhere to a moral and righteous life. And that is the promise. And that's true. It's a promise that I can attest to 100%. This is true, and this is what God does.
I'll give you a symbol. Tithing. How much money have these people made taking 10% out of your pocket? Tithing has nothing whatsoever to do with money. It's symbolic. It's a hidden myth. And what it means is you have 10% of you that is the carnal mind. 10% of you is the left side, it is the negative side, it is the carnal mind. 90% of you is the right hemisphere, which is dormant. God is saying to you, give me that 10%. Give me your ego. Give me your flesh. Give me your will. Through meditation, shut off the thoughts of the mind. You shut off the 10%, which is you. You turn on the right hemisphere, which is the 90%, which is him. You have tithed. Don't give, well, I'm not going to say, but you shouldn't give anybody 10% of anything. You should give God that 10%, which is you, by shutting off your ego and rising up into a high, beautiful consciousness with God. That's what tithing really means, giving God yourself, the 10%, the negative left side, the carnal, intellectual side.
If you stop for just 10, 15 seconds and let your mind sit, you'll see that your mind is like a monkey cage in there. This thing's swinging back and forth and chirping and going on all the time because you've never allowed it to be still. Nobody ever told you. Even in church and religion, they say, God is where? God is here in my heart. But that doesn't mean with the heart. The heart means the center. It's here. That thing which we call God is in the center. It's here. But we've never paid any attention to it. Most of us never even knew we had a right hemisphere of the brain. Most of us never knew we had a pineal gland of the brain. Never understood these things. Because the church wouldn't allow us. They said that the man up here with the robe on will save you if you'll just do what you're told, get up when you're told, kneel when you're told, sing when you're told, put the money in when you're told, get out when you're told, come back when you're told. All this nonsense. Instead of understanding there is a need for a renewal to happen within each one of us. And that renewal comes very, very easily if we simply expose ourselves to this power. So the mind cannot be involved. Look at page 782. In those little Bibles that you have there, and look at the book of Matthew. And what does Matthew say? What does Jesus Christ say? Okay, Matthew chapter 6. Matthew chapter 6, and look at verse 25, okay? Take no thought, Matthew chapter 6, verse 25, for your life, okay? Look at verse 27. Which of you by taking thought can add 1 cubit? Verse 28, why take you thought? Okay. Look at verse 31, take no thought. And look at verse 34, take no thought. And Jesus isn't saying don't worry. I mean, if your paycheck doesn't show up, you worry. If the doctor says, listen, the tests are done, call me tomorrow morning and I'll give you the results. All night long you're going to worry. It's impossible. See? What Jesus is saying there, he's not saying don't worry about anything. He's saying take no thought for your life. Which means take no thought. Meditate. Go in and separate from the thoughts of the mind so that you receive new information from that still small voice which is within you. You receive direction and you're able then to deal with anything that comes against you.
Many fundamentalist Christians insist that things like meditation or entheogens are evil and open you up to demons. But in reality, meditation is just sitting still and doing nothing. And those God-created entheogenic plants just grow that way. If sitting still, doing nothing for a while every day is so negative, why does it have so many positive physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual benefits? And if entheogens are so negative, why do they also have so many positive physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual benefits? Basically, these people locked in their left brain literal thinking see anything that helps stimulate their right brain lateral thinking as against their rigid beliefs.
And I'll tell you something, I don't care how much of a born-again Christian, how much of a good Jew, or whatever you are, nothing is going to work unless you start doing this and start moving the brain waves down to the cyclic rhythm of the brain waves down from theta, beta to alpha. So you got to go from beta to alpha to theta to delta. If you don't, you can forget about it. The Holy Spirit, absolutely forget about it. There is no Holy Spirit unless you get out of beta and move into alpha. It doesn't exist. It's a very scientific principle. When you get those people up to Jankowicz's backyard and they're all seeing Mary, sure they are. There's no doubt they are. But how come? Because the brain waves, because of this meditation they're into, the energy is starting to move, and they're starting to move out of beta down into alpha. And it opens the visionary process. When you get down to theta, you cross over into the right hemisphere of the brain, and when you get to delta, you're gone. But you have to. It can't work any other way. But unfortunately, the part with Christianity that is so bad, they know nothing about this, and the entire religion is based in beta. It's all emotions. I mean, even the music, and we used to be into it hot and heavy, you know. The music is banging, the tambourines and banging, and I'm going to get to heaven when I see Jesus, and everybody's jumping and shouting and jumping and carrying around. And it is totally emotional, which, you know, is not, see, this thing is not a social thing. It's not a thing of a group type of entertainment. This thing is an extremely private, personal encounter with you deep within yourself. So it has to be silent. And as the Bible says over and over again, be still. God lives in silence. The Lord is in his holy temple. Let everyone be silent in his presence. And when you're silent in the presence deep within you, then your brain waves will start to move from 26 down to 16, down to 8, down to 4, and you'll move from beta to alpha, then into theta, and on you go. What can happen? I can tell you what happens. You get down to delta, what can happen? We've seen it on television where Buddhist monks would sit in meditation. Oh, they would take them, and they're practically naked, and they would take these ice-cold sheets stuffed in cold water and put them around their bodies. And we saw it on television, remember? And suddenly you see smoke from these things. Smoke would actually come. They'd be pressing the sheets on their back, and they dry them. Do we see it? I don't know if any of you saw it on the Discovery Channel. This is the power of the mind. That's why Jesus Christ says the kingdom is within you. What's possible to do? Nothing if you're going to sit there and just activate the left side of the brain. Nothing is possible. I mean, all that's possible is religion and war, which are the same thing. There's not a whole lot of difference between religion and fighting.
Here where I live in Thailand, Buddha is their Jesus, and many believe he performed several similar literal miracles as Jesus, like walking on water, over 500 years prior. Buddha was said to have been born and instantly began walking, taking 7 steps forward, after each step a lotus flower appearing on the ground under his feet. Then, after his 7th step, he stopped and shouted, "I am chief of the world." Now, of course, newborn babies cannot talk or walk out of the womb, and lotus flowers cannot magically blossom under one's feet. But the majority of Buddhist literalists here in Thailand, if asked, would agree these things are impossible for anyone else, but make special exception for Buddha. Likewise, the majority of Christian literalists around the world, when asked, agree these things are impossible for anyone else, but make special exception for Jesus. In another tale, taken literally by most Buddhists, Buddha was meditating under a tree when it began to rain heavily. From behind him, a huge king cobra came and coiled his body 7 times around Buddha's body to keep him warm, and placed his hood over Buddha's head to protect him from the rain. After 7 days, the rain stopped, and the snake turned into a young man, who thereafter became one of Buddha's followers. If you asked the average Christian if they believed these Buddhist miracles, they would laugh at the idea of a snake turning into a man, but at the same time believe Moses and Aaron's staffs turned into snakes.
Buddha, Shakyamuni Buddha said a lot of people will come and say, you know, they'll get near a friend and they'll start to freak out and they'll say, because this person always comes around and stirs up this or stirs up that. And they said, you know, why do you have to stir up all this crap all the time and get me crazy? And Buddha said, your mind is like a cup. And in the bottom of that cup are all the thoughts and all the fears and all the guilt that you've accumulated over past lives and accumulated as a child, and it's a sediment in the bottom of the cup. And when you put clear, clean water in into a cup that has a sediment, when then you stir it up, the water becomes dirty. But what Buddha said, and if you clean that cup out, and so there's none of that crap in there, these people can come and stir and stir and stir all night, the water's going to stay clean. And all he was saying is, it's the thoughts that are running around in the subconscious part of your mind that were put there by your parents, that were put there by your school, that were put there by the church, that are put there by the government. All of these things have accumulated in the recesses of the subconsciousness. And when somebody triggers it or stirs it up, they all come flying out and you got all hell breaking loose. Not only outside, but inside of your head. That's why Buddha said he is the statue. And that's why you must become the statue. You become the Buddha, you become the statue. The statue has no feelings. You are simply resting in your being. Come on, you've got 40 hours in the week or whatever it is to have feelings. But just for that 1/2 hour, you become a statue and you rest in your own inner being and the feelings are just allowed to wash away. And that 1/2 hour, as like the doctors say, 1/2 hour of meditation is equal to 8 hours of sleep. Being extremely alert. So this is meditation. So you move then with the point of activity through the thinking process, through the feeling process, and you touch the center. And that is what we call, or what we've known as God. But this is the important part. I can't do it for you. No preacher can do it for you. No priest or minister can do it for you. No pope can do it for you. This is your lovely creation. So the more unaffected you are with your thoughts, the less they'll come. And then when they disappear, mind disappears. And when mind disappears, God is there. When you are in a total point of what Buddha called nirvana, there is not one thought. Can you imagine that? You want to do it sometimes? All you got to do is take your fingers, stick them in your ears, and hum for about 10 seconds. All thoughts go away. Or hold your breath for 15 seconds. As soon as you shut off your breath, there's no thought. And just think of that. There's none of your personality. There's none of your ideas. None of your fears. And when you're gone, who is there? That thing that you call God. The essence of nature. The essence of nature, the very thing that teaches a dog how to give birth, teaches a dog how to be a midwife, teaches a dog how to do an operation on a sack and cut an umbilical cord and all of that stuff. That's God. It's like, how does that dog know? Teaches a robin where your backyard is so it can come back. That robin that you see come into your backyard next spring is the same robin that was there this spring. No trouble finding it. Where are you going, Robin? I'm going up to Ethel's. How do you know where it is? I meditate. Off he goes, and he winds up in Ethel's backyard. How is this possible? All of these things that you say, oh, that's instinct. Sure, it's instinct. Where does it come from? It's this beautiful plan of nature. And nature has a beautiful plan for each one of us, but we've let religion get in the way, and we said, no thanks. No thanks. I'm going to read the Bible and listen to the pastor. And we didn't listen to the voice inside, and we missed it. This is the point that you've got to understand, especially when you come to meditation a lot, as many of you do. It does not make any difference what type of an experience you had that night. What makes a difference is how has it affected your life. Meditation is not to sit here and float around and say, oh, I saw this, oh, I had a great time, oh, I had a tremendous experience. It has nothing to do with that. Meditation is to make you better so that you can deal with life. You can deal with the in-laws and the outlaws. You can deal with the police. You can deal with the church. You can deal with everybody because of your meditation. If it changes your life so that you can deal with the things that come against you better, then you know your meditation is working.
The reason Jesus lived 33 years is the same reason the first Temple of Solomon stood pristine for 33 years. King David ruled for 33 years. Leah had 33 children. Freemasons have 33 degrees, and Atlas is your 33rd vertebrae. The spiritual numerology and symbolism in the Bible are there for those with eyes to see, but hidden under literal translation and interpretations by the very left-brain prisoners Jesus sought to free.
The parallel between that and alchemical sex is that there's 33 vertebrae in your spine. There's 33 years in the life of Jesus.
Jesus Christ.
Okay? There is a a substance or liquid or a substance that comes from your medulla, which is basically completely looks like the Ark of the Covenant, has angel's wings around it, the whole thing. So this substance comes from your medulla, makes the trip down your spine to your sacrum, which is
Quick, get a dictionary.
Christ coming down into human form.
Yeah.
And if you don't squander that essence, that sexual essence, it ascends again and goes back up to heaven, which is your thing. It's also the story of Santa Claus. Why he comes down the chimney is because this juice or this whatever substance actually passes what's called the claustrum, which is where they got Santa Claus.
And it's the secretion I've spoke about in length that we secrete within our bodies and then we return via correct living, via temperance and pure thoughts towards others, which lead to pure actions. And in my experience, service to God. I'm one of the blessed few on the planet who spent the last 5 years of my life living for that which God has asked me to live for, which turned out to be children in desperate need, as you all know here. This knowledge is so heavily suppressed. I know that it's a liberator for mankind, because the elitists, they suppress that which can quash their rule. Now you look at the Vatican suppressing it with their pinecone statues. You look at the misinterpretations done by accident by religious leaders all over the planet. This exists in the Dharma, the Bhagavad Gita, the Upanishads, the Bible, the Quran. It's everywhere. It's a common union that mankind could have to find some form of oneness between their belief systems. But everybody, unless you access it, you have a linear brain that says, no, this is the only possible way. You'll have Christians saying the only way to God is through Jesus, you can't do it through Allah. But what if the only way to God is through Jesus because Jesus was telling you to do what he told you to do? Why do you call me Lord and not do as I ask? As he said, don't fast, don't live for others, don't give it away to the poor. What's going to happen to you? You're not going to preserve the sacred secretion which is just being referred to by a mainstream celebrity. This knowledge literally can liberate humanity. 100%. Humanity can be liberated by the knowledge of the sacred secretion, because in liberating themselves with that, they learn how the human body works at its best. Goodbye depression, goodbye lack of temperance, goodbye sexual immorality, goodbye pornography addictions, goodbye alcohol addictions, goodbye drug addictions, goodbye obsessive compulsive problems, goodbye judgment of others, goodbye nearly all negative behaviours. If our children were taught how to preserve that substance to get their body to vibrate in a way where they are constantly attuned antenna of prayer to the realm of God, and thus their heart is always roaring, always happy. That is the sacred secretion. That is the importance of it. And a man I made a video about recently, Jim Carrey, has just spoken about it in the public eye. And many thousands of ears have heard what he's got to say, but I know only a small percentage will look into what he's saying. But it's important that people understand this science, because it is the physical functioning of the human body to reach God. And if we just persist to hear things and don't find the discipline to become a strong human being, as I said in a recent video, is not someone who can exercise important, but the true muscle of a human is the intellect, the wisdom and the knowledge. That's what sets us aside from the animal world. You want to lift weights to get strong? Go out in the jungle and fight a gorilla. You're not going to win. But if you want to overcome all aspects of all problems humanity face, this is where it'll come from, knowledge. And that man hopefully just opened the key, opened the door with a key to many people on the planet who can look into what he was saying, because it's true. I have used the sacred secretion. I have used the alchemy of Kundalini, as it's been labelled with him, or the transformation of that energy within you to become the best functioning human being I can. If you obey the teachings of the Buddha or the Krishna or Jesus, you will too. Even if you know it or not, you will too. If you fast, you pray, you live for others, you have pure thoughts, you will align your body to have the best possible balance that it can have. And you will be the best functioning human being you can be. And when I started practicing this, as well as seeking God with an open heart, I have done all that has been achieved here, using that every single day of my life. Over 700 kids that we provide for, over 600 out of child labour. The other 70 are now living with us, as you all know. We've got 60 rescued dogs. From nothing. I couldn't have done that before I knew this information, before I knew this, before I understood why meditation and temperance were actually physically important, because it makes my body work better, makes my brain more powerful, makes my ability to function in the present moment and do what God needs me to do better than it ever could have been before. And yet people are still out there not doing this science, not doing what God asked, and sitting complaining and moaning and calling other people out and saying that they're not true Christians because they haven't awakened to it. And they don't need to know about the sacred secretion, don't need to know about the transformation of this energy. As long as you just follow what was taught, for instance, by Jesus, and you fast and you live for others and you live with love first, it will happen to you. But the problem is, and the problem we face, is that for many people, they've never done it. Because they've never obeyed. Instead, they've called, in the predominant Western instance, they've called Jesus Lord and not done as he asked, exactly what he said. And this is not good enough. This does not make you a follower of Christ. It makes you a follower of a religious institution, which has morphed and dismantled the true teaching and the very core teaching of every religion and spiritual practice on the planet that has a strong, profound document that's lasted centuries. Hidden inside all of there is the esoteric codes, which I've covered in hundreds of videos on my channel, of the science of the sacred secretion and attuning the human body to be the perfect antenna of prayer, whereby you can serve others and serve God with faith, because you then have no more need, concern or worry about having money in a bank account, etc., because you know you can pray. You still need money to function. I can't feed all these hundreds of children without it, but I don't live by it. I don't bank money. I don't have my own bank account saving up money, etc. Because my bank account exists in my faith. When I need something, I humble myself, I call out, and he comes. And that's how it should be for all humans. That's how it was for the native tribes. But thus, we've gotten lost, and we think that our two hands and our 2 feet are the things that can do it for us. They can to some degree, but without the sacred secretion, you're 30% of the human being you can be. With the sacred secretion, you can eradicate all problems. Overeating, substance abuse, depression, it'll all wash away.